Agyananjala Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Taralaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tarabhaktaya Namo Namaha Yam Pravajantam Anapaityam Apaitya Krityam Dvaipayano Viraha Katara Ajuhava Putreti Tam Mayatayo Taravoginidustam Sarvabhutam Munimanatoshmi Bhaktya Vihina Aparada Lakshay Shiptascha Karma Jai Shishivara Gopinath Ki Jai Sachinanda Ki Jai Bhaktya Vihina Aparada Lakshay Shiptascha Karma Titaranga Madhye Kripa Mahitvam Sharanam Prapanam Vrinde Namaste Charanara Vindam Bhajami Radham Aravinda Netram Smarami Radham Madhurashmitasyam Vadami Radham Karuna Baradram Tatoma Manasti Gatyana Chapi. I first of all offer millions and millions of Dandavat pranams at the lotus feet of my beloved Gurudev, Nitya Lila, Pravishta Asto Tadasara Shishima, Sripad Bhaktivedanta Tridandi Swami Maharaj. And the same again, millions and millions of times at the lotus feet of our beloved Nitya Lila, Pravishta Asto Tadasara Shishima, Sripad Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada, and all the Vaishnava and Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, Dandavat pranams. So this is our last evening and class on Siksastakam. So, Srila Gurudev, we read some of this today, and we discussed quite at length these moods of prema that manifest in the heart of that transcendental sadhak, that jatarati sadhak, when he is purified entirely that self-centered nature. And in this verse, aslisya va padaratam panashto mam adarshanam mamam hatam karotava yata tada va vedatu lampato mat prananastu sa eva naparaha. So this is the 6th verse, the last verse, the highest conception of praying that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is tasting. And we discussed today that when the heart breaks through an intensity of separation, then with that breaking of the heart, the opening manifests union. When the heart is breaking, so by the intensity of the separation, the heart will break. Just like in the material world, we say, oh, he broke my heart. This means the heart is breaking in affection or attraction. So it's like this Vipralamba mood is like the breaking of the heart. It hurts. There's a separation, time, and then there's intense union. Gurudev has described like this, I think in here. Yes, here. He's talking about this verse of Siksastakam, and then he's saying that it means breaking the heart due to separation. In reality, the anguish of the heart related to separation is not a source of distress, but of supreme happiness. This is the condition, but just like Sita and Ram, that heart-wrenching pastime, but how captivating has that pastime been? Even now, even though this did not even happen in this kalpa, it happened millions and millions of years ago. In a previous kalpa, this Ram avatar, it didn't happen in these 4 cycles. It wasn't just in the last Treta Yuga that Lord Ram manifested. It was the one before that, Gurudev explains. But how much is he still glorified in the world? One time I was staying in Kanpur, and so many thousands and thousands of people every day recite the Ramayana. It's so strong in that part of the world, in Lucknow, places like that. Very, very, such a deep impression. So why would they be chanting it if it wasn't giving them this sweetness ultimately? It's breaking the heart, but within that breaking of the heart
is the flowering of union, is the flowering of the sweetest prema. And the condition of the consciousness in that height of prema is what is shown in this verse, this aslisya vapadaritam. That Sri Radha is saying that you can cavort with other lovers in front of me, and still you're going to be my very heart, my very life, my prananath. So Gurudev is explaining like this. Now, I just want to read here that Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur, he's giving a benediction to the readers. I'm reading this before we go into Bhajan Rahasya. So he's giving a benediction to the readers who have studied this Siksastakam. So now for 42 hours we've studied Siksastakam. For 14 days, 2 classes each day, we've studied this. Now Bhaktivedanta Thakur is saying, faithful persons who with great devotion read and study this Siksastakam, which emanated from the lotus mouth of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, will become infatuated with greed to taste the honey from the lotus feet of Sri Gaurasundara. Moreover, they will be submerged in the reservoir of prema for Murari Sri Krishna Chandra. 401 years after the appearance of Sri Gauranga, this commentary on Sri Siksastaka, named Sanmodana Bhasya, has been composed by me, Kedarnath Bhaktivinod. So he's leaving this benediction that all this sweetness and prema will manifest in the heart of that sober sadhak who takes the time to study this commentary. Now, Gurudev is giving his benediction for his commentary. He's saying, for pure Rasik Vaishnavas who taste Madhurya Ras, this Siksastaka is the essence of all the Vedas, because it emanated from the lotus mouth of Swayam Bhagavan. It is an essential truth, a Mahavakya. Therefore, all fortunate persons should adorn their necks with the garland of this Siksastaka by reading, studying, and worshipping it daily as a fixed principle. Daily. Yes, we can include it in our many prayers. We can just chant this Siksastakam daily. But now, I'm sure, the same with me, when we chant it, we're hearing the meanings of each verses. We've gone so much into detail describing the aspects of each verses. So each verse has tremendous significance in the stages of bhakti. And as we go through them, particularly in the first verse, all of the 7 jewels are there. Very clear, Chaito, Dapana, Bhajana, cleansing the mirror of the heart, etc. Bhava Mahadavagni, this stage of Nishta, etc. So if we become familiar with this, it's like just becoming familiar with the reasons for Mahaprabhu's advent, becoming familiar with his desires. When we become very familiar with it, then it's no strain, then we can enter into the glories properly of Mahaprabhu. Why he manifested, what were these desires in his heart. Who wants to say the 3 desires? Who can say the 3 desires immediately? Lasik, can you say? You're my best bet out of everyone to say them straight away. So.
The 3 desires for the Advent?
No, not the Advent. His desires that constitute Unnata Ujjvala Prema.
To taste the sweetness of Srimati Radhika? That, no, I'm saying no.
First, who can
To
say?
understand the glories of Srimati Radhika.
Yes. Second?
Then
The astonishing qualities of Krishna.
Vipin knows them well. The astonishing quality, Adbhuta Madhurima, astonishing qualities that Radha perceives in Krishna. Yes, this is the second desire of Mahaprabhu. And the third?
Happiness and sweetness.
No. The happiness
And sweetness.
which Radha experiences from receiving the sweetness of Krishna's love, not the 2 words together. The happiness is describing Radharani's mood, and the sweetness is the adjective describing Krishna's love. That's why it's not easy to learn. Because the first adjective is describing Radha, and the second adjective is describing Krishna. And we're talking about Krishna, so it's not a simple conception. But once we grasp that idea, that conception, it actually becomes very simple to understand or to relish the happiness. He wants to relish the happiness that Radha experiences by receiving. She can't experience any high moods without her relationship with Krishna. It's all dependent on Krishna. So this is what Mahaprabhu wants to experience. So the sadhak, he becomes immersed in these understandings. There's a paragraph here from Gurudev's commentary. It's saying, in the stage of perfection. Now again, we're just referring to this verse 8. In the stage of perfection, this is considered the highest stage of perfection, prema. The jiva is devoid of all material designations pertaining to both the body and the mind. In other words, it can't be imitated because it's not in the mental quantum where these experiences are taking place. It's in another whole plane. It's in another whole different state of consciousness. Consciousness is the symptom of the soul. It's its very symptom. Without consciousness, the body is dead. It's a dead body if it has no consciousness. Consciousness is a symptom of the soul. So within the consciousness, there is consciousness of the mind and body. And this is generally our experience in life. We don't experience so much that higher state of consciousness except when we're chanting, when we're in front of the deities, when we're with the devotees, particularly when we're with Srila Gurudev. We see how our state of consciousness increases. I described the other day how when Srila Gurudev would climb off the podium and walk through the crowd, we were all looking to catch his glance. I remember Ramji, just because he sits in a wheelchair, got so much special mercy almost every single day. Gurudev would just come to him. Sometimes he would even give him a garland, etc. But his consciousness was immediately lifted by that direct exchange with Srila Gurudev. We were all looking for his glance because we knew our consciousnesses would be affected. So this consciousness leaves the bodily and mental platform behind. This is what Gurudev is saying. In these higher stages, has nothing to do with the body or the mind. It's not related to the external world. It's a completely internal realization. So Gurudev is saying, in this stage of perfection, the jiva is devoid of all material designations pertaining to both the body and the mind. At that time, the jiva becomes a female attendant of the gopis of Aprakat Vrindavan, the place where Nandanandan Sri Krishna freely enacts his divine lila. By nature, we are all feminine. The feminine nature is to serve. That's a nature of being in a female's body. If we're in a traditional marriage, traditionally the wife is always careful to serve the husband, and the husband will reciprocate. And there's great pleasure from both sides, because the husband is also serving the wife, but in a different way, in a more perhaps internal way. The husband is providing security, protection, etc. So it's both service. We see in the traditional Indian home that this is very much the case. The wife will be trained from birth to honor and serve the husband as her lord. And with that relationship, it's very conducive actually for spiritual advancement. But of course we see today that this is completely not the case. But this mood of service, is usually most easily seen in the bodies of women. Just like, for example, there's one airline, it's called Ryanair, and they have male hosts, stewards, and they're hopeless. They're hopeless. They get angry, they get impatient, they've got no finesse. about serving at all. When you come from somewhere like Asian Airlines or Singapore Airlines or somewhere there, or Thai Airlines, somewhere like everyone knows all the airlines. You know, these kind of services you get from those Oriental women, they know from birth this gift and quality of service. It's something very, very high. It's very special. It's our innate nature. And we are all by nature, we all possess this feminine mood because ultimately we are all servants of Sri Krishna. That is our swadharma, that is our identity. We're all his servants. So therefore we're all of a female nature, ultimately. But we have different abhimans or conceptions of ourselves in a male body or a female body, etc. So Gurudev is saying like this. He's saying the jiva becomes a female attendant of the gopis of Aprakat Vrindavan, the place where Nandanandan, Sri Krishna, enacts freely his divine Leela. There one is engaged in fulfilling the desires of Sri Krishna through his spiritual senses and one's siddha deha. This is the actual nature of prema bhakti. This is the nature of prema bhakti. The jiva could never consider himself as the ashraya vigraha. The ashraya vigraha to the Lord's eternal associates, who are naturally the receptacle of love for Sri Krishna, and under whose guidance the aspiring devotees place themselves in order to awaken their spontaneous attraction to... I didn't read that properly. The jiva should never consider himself as the ashraya vigraha. The ashraya vigraha, there's the vishaya and the ashraya. The Krishna is the vishaya. Vishaya means enjoyer. The ashraya is that who is being enjoyed. So I can't understand this here. The ashraya vigraha refers to the Lord's eternal associates. Okay, so now we're talking about in the transcendental realm, who are naturally the receptacle of love for Sri Krishna. These are the ragatmika bhaktas. This is what he's talking about here. And under whose guidance, we are under their guidance, the aspiring devotees place themselves in order to awaken their spontaneous attraction. It's not well written here, but this is what it means. We are under the guidance of those ashraya vigraha, gopis, those ragatmika gopis. We are in this path of raganuga. In order to awaken our spontaneous attraction towards the Lord. The ashraya vigraha here specifically refers to Srimati Radhika. That was why it was confusing. A devotee never considers himself to be identical with the ashraya vigraha. Vigraha means that embodiment of ashraya. Like we say, the vigraha of the murti form, the embodiment of the murti form, the vigraha. So the ashraya vigraha is the embodiment of that conception of the receptacle, and that highest conception is within Sri Radha. She is the principal ashraya. The devotee never considers himself to be identical with the ashraya vigraha, but always feels himself to be their follower and an aspirant for their mercy. When one considers himself as the ashraya vigraha, then his worship becomes what is called ahangropasana. So this is a whole other topic that's actually discussed in Bhagavad Gita. This ahangropasana means that I'm identifying myself with the object of worship. I'm starting to feel very wonderful and ecstatic symptoms. This must be exactly how Krishna is feeling. This is called ahangropasana. This is when I'm identifying myself with the object. This is an impersonal conception. This is unfortunate. So then, now, there's a very nice 2 paragraphs summary, and then we'll come to Vajana Rahasya. So if you want to write this down as I'm speaking, I wanted to make a diagram of this. Now, Srila Gurudev is going to define all the verses in their groups, what they represent. Sadhan, Bhav and Prem. And he's also going to describe how they fit into the categories of Sambandha, Abhideya and Prayojana. Sambandha is the first stage, our relationship. Abhideya is the method to achieve that relationship. And Prayojana is the final taste of that relationship. Understand these three simple stages. First, understanding my relationship, this Sambandha, and then how to develop that relationship, Abhideya, and then what is going to be the sweetness and taste from that relationship. Okay? So, in all 8 shlokas of Siksastakam, 3 subjects have been explained. Sambandha, directed towards the practice of bhakti. What is my relationship with bhakti? What is my relationship with devotion? Abhideya and Prayojana Tattva. In the first shloka, sadhan in the form of Sri Krishna Sankirtan has been described in a general way. Summary form. All the 7 principles and stages of bhakti are clearly defined. Cheto Dharmana Marjana, Bhavamaha Davagni Nirvapana, Ashraya Karaiva Chandrika Vitarana, Vidya Vadu Jivana, Anandam Buddhi Vardana, Prati Pratam Punamritas Vardana, Sarvatma Snapadam, is bathing the whole self, Sarva Atma, bathing the whole self, Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtana. So, begin to break these 7 phrases down that are describing the 7 stages of bhakti. Not so difficult. Just all of this is just familiarity, isn't it? But this familiarity will give us confidence in our spiritual progress. When this familiarity is there and we're feeling encouraged by this confidence, then we can more diligently take our mala, more diligently take our practice more seriously. So, Sri Krishna Sankirtan has been described in a general way. In the second shloka, the awareness of one's incompetence to execute the super excellent form of sadhana is shown. Immediately, the mood of humility must be coming in the sadhana. We described before the nature of material consciousness is conditioned by pride. I described before how the unfortunate materialist, he's taking pride in absolutely everything he does, everything he thinks he owns, his environment around him, everything he's taking pride in his achievements, his accomplishments, etc. We see today how ludicrous it is. Somebody will be walking around with their head really high because they're proud of their new shoes. They're proud of their new hairstyle. They're proud of a new jacket. They're proud of their happy family. They're proud of their son. They're proud of their daughter. They're proud of anything. It's the nature of material consciousness. We should see our own pride also. We give it a word. We call it pratishta. This self-glorification seeking, this self-centered mood. We also have this, of course, but the process is to purify that so that we can see. We can't see through the filter of our own false ego and our own material desires. Everything is distorted. But when that is purified, then clear spiritual vision will manifest for the sadhak. So Gurudev is describing like this. This second verse is when we feel that we have complete incompetence. And it's described throughout scripture that whenever one comes in contact with that pure devotee, Sadguru, one immediately feels a natural incompetence. It's the nature to feel stumbling and bumbling in front of Gurudev. You can't come there thinking, oh yes, I'm a pretty good Johnny Hotshot, I know all kinds of things, and Actually, you know, Gurudev might ask me to do something. Oh yes, I can do this. I'm so expert at so many things. No, practically. And if you do feel like that, Gurudev will very quickly perform an amazing operation just to flatten you into the dust by his mercy. Gurudev said one time in Bhajana, it was so funny. He said, then I will crush you. And everyone was thinking, oh. And then he said, to pieces. At the end, afterwards. He said, first crushing and then to pieces. So this is his mercy, to crush us to pieces. To crush what? To crush our false conception of our sense of importance. Krishna is the most important personality. Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu, Srimati Radharani, and Srila Gurudev, and all the other Vaishnavas. But I am the least important. So the material conception, the way of life from school, from the very first grade when you enter school, is to build this misconception of my own self-importance. We're educated in this. It's called the school of the demons. Just like Prahlad Maharaj. He was preaching to the school of the demons. That's what it is. It's teaching you to exploit material energy, so you will be a very important person in the world, and everyone will think so. That's what it's about. That's its nature. But the school of Srila Gaurkishore Das Babaji was completely the antithesis, the opposite of that. It's to purify this misconception. And with that purification, such juice comes in the heart. Wow, it's such a relief to let all that go. This is what is Sharanagati, to let that illusion state of importance just drop away from us. It's a great relief. We don't have to use any energy to sort of like shore up our false egos anymore. We can just let it go. Let it go. Let go and let God. Everything becomes very peaceful then. Becomes very beautiful. This is like a stage of liberation on the way to Krishna. So, this awareness of my own incompetence, Baba Mahadavagniya Nivarpana, this Namnamakari Bahuda, Nija Sharva Shaktis, that Krishna is so kind, he's given so many names, he's invested all his powers in the names, but Durdaiva, Idrisham, Ihajini, Nanurag, but I'm so unfortunate that I have no taste for all this, even though he's giving me this with such potency. He's empowered the name, but still I'm so unfortunate. This is good to feel that. Remember I described that beautiful analogy of that Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj said, that when you come to the shore of the material ocean, you feel dwarfed by its immensity. What to speak of that sadhak who approaches the transcendental ocean? How insignificant does he feel? He feels like he's wasted so many births. Bhaktivinoda Thakur sings so many songs about this mood of lamentation, this Gopinath, this beautiful bhajana. The third shloka teaches the method for chanting the holy names. The method. What is the method? The method, the process, is to find that place of deep humility within my heart. That natural humility that is born from total detachment from material enjoyment. That means Trinadapi Sunichena. That natural humility will manifest when I'm completely detached from trying to exploit Krishna's world. I'm not trying to enjoy anything in this world anymore. It's fruitless. It's tasteless. Even we hear this 1,000 times, it won't check us. We'll still look for something. Because of our conditioning. But by the power of the holy name, this misconception can be cleared. And that name is given by Guru. That name is empowered by Guru and empowered by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. With that sort of power, it can make the impossible possible. This is what can manifest by this third verse, Trinadapi Sunichena. And then tarorapi suhichanam, more tolerant, this compassion that will manifest by a complete lack of envy. This envy, as we described, is crackling in this world. Everywhere is envy. But by this compassionate mood for all living entities, this envy is purified, swept away. Just like a current from a river can sweep away little objects on its bank when it gets in flood. So the beginning of this Siksastakam, we're getting into a flood. We're about to be flooded. The ultimate flood level comes at prema in the 6th verse where we are now. But it's like a flood pouring down, cleansing the jiva. So this 3rd verse is described as the method for chanting the holy name. One must take it in all humility. And the 4th shloka, the necessity of eliminating unfavorable desires and deceit in the form of the aspiration for moksha. So these subtle desires, all right, in the 2nd verse we were addressing our various anarthas, the gross desires. Then we were examining what is the process, how to develop this humility. But even with that humility, I'm still plagued with deceit, hypocrisy. I'm still plagued with these subtle desires, this anishtita and nishtita bhakti, even this laya, sleepiness when I'm taking my vikshepa, this gossiping, this aprati apati, this indifference to the name. Oh, I'm chanting, just looking out of the window, seeing so many things. Indifference, then this kshaya, I'm still carrying bad habits. And then rasavad, I still have a taste for this lower, degraded world, that I think I can get something out of it. So these 5 nishtita, it's described in Madhuri Kadambini, are still lingering. These subtle things, even they have to go. Actually, letting go of these things is a form of detachment. We have to become detached from those lower things. The 5th is knowledge of the jiva's original spiritual identity. Ayinanda Tanuja Kinkaram. Kinkaram, I explained at length this word, Kinkaram. Kinkari, maidservant of Sri Radha. Mahaprabhu is a maidservant of Sri Krishna. He is in the mood of Radha. It's feminine. This Ayi, I describe, is a feminine, what do you call it? Is it pronoun? What is it in grammatical language? When you're calling out. If it was male, he would be saying, hey Nanda. Hey Nanda is what a male would call. A female, evocative. Yes, so the evocative tense, yeah, it would be, hey Nanda Nanda. But it's are, ai. It's in the female. So we're appreciating very deeply now where this Siksastakam has manifested from, the lotus heart of Sri Krishna himself as Gaurasundara. So now we're understanding there's the flavor of Mahaprabhu very deeply there. All the way through the Siksastakam, we're remembering Mahaprabhu, we're remembering his munificence, his mercy, his Audarya Shakti, this speciality of Mahaprabhu. So all the way, all these thoughts about Mahaprabhu are there in the consciousness as I'm becoming purified, because it's by his mercy alone that I'm able to purify myself at all. It's not by Krishna, it's not by Brajendranandan in Vrindavan 5,000 years ago. It's by the living reality of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy 500 years ago. There's a difference. Krishna was the Vishaya. He was the enjoyer. He wasn't giving the process or the method to taste his moods that he was experiencing at all. No one even knew what Krishna was doing at night time. How many knew about the Rasa Lila? They know about Bhagavad Gita, Hartasarti. This was a display for the whole world. But what about those esoteric Vrindavan pastimes? Who knew about that? Krishna was enjoying himself. But Mahaprabhu, he's come as the ashraya, not as the vishaya. He's come as the receptacle of that enjoying mood. He's come to taste what is the what is the sweetness of the object, of himself. The sugar wants to taste sugar. So the fifth is knowledge of the jiva's original spiritual identity. Without this knowledge of the Swarup, how can we come to the next verse? Because the next verse is showing symptoms of Anubhav. It's showing symptoms of Bhav. That means there's no more mental working. There's no more false ego. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain. Nayanam gladashru darya, vadanam gadgara, rudaya gira, pulake, the hairs are standing on end. My voice is choking up, rudaya gira. And by this name, what's that last line now? Pulake nichitavapu, tava nama grihane bhavishyati. This tava nama, it's by this name that I'm experiencing these ecstatic symptoms. But I've gone into my Swarup now in the fifth verse. This is the process going through these verses. The sixth is how one achieves good fortune by attaining proximity to Krishna. The sixth, he's become attached to a speck of dust on Krishna's lotus feet. This was the desire. And he's understanding in that sixth verse, how does it feel to be in Krishna's proximity? There are times when our hearts will break. This viraha, this vipralamba. But in the breaking of the heart, we describe, is the flowering of the sweetness of union. So the ultimate of separation is sweetness. The separation is leading to sweetness. It's the chemistry to produce the highest sweetness. Krishna left Sri Radha for 100 years. What intense separation did she build in that time? This was also for Krishna, of course, to glorify Sri Radha and glorify the gopis, glorify their love. Why did he want to glorify their love? So we would follow their love. We would follow in the wake of their love. This is Rag Anuga. How can we not hear about these pastimes? How can we be inhibited to talk about these pastimes when Krishna is so munificent and giving us a clear direction? How can we say, no, I'm not going to discuss it, it's too high for me. Let me just go back to Bhagavad Gita, I'm not the body. Yes, this is much more easy for me to discuss. You know what happens when you discuss lower topics very competently? You probably become quite proud. Oh, I know all the verses of the second chapter. Yes, I can discuss very conclusively how you're not the body. And then you can sit on that platform for years and get so much honor and pratishta and so on. But you haven't actually progressed. Because the process is to purify the false ego. We want to go beyond that. We want to come to this fifth verse first, the Swarup of the Jiva, Kinkari. And then the sixth, this Vipralamba. The sixth one achieves good fortune by attaining the proximity of Sri Krishna. The seventh, the mood of separation in those who have acquired the highest qualification. This mood of separation. This yugayitam namishena, chakshusam sunyayitam, jagat sorvam govinda vira hename. I'm not good at pronouncing these. You have to say them very clearly when you chant them. I remember for years I would just rush through it and I never really pronounced it properly, so now I have to go very slowly and try and pronounce, because it's not an easy pronunciation.
The mood of separation in those who have acquired. I missed the last part.
You don't have the book there? You have this book? No one has this book with them. Choose the book. Mood of separation in those who have acquired the highest qualification. That's it. Appreciating those moods of those associates who have acquired the highest qualification. And the eighth, the ultimate perfection of one's cherished goal. So what a beautiful necklace this Siksastakam is for our whole life. For a whole life, we can dig into the jewels of this Siksastakam. If we understand it to some degree now, be sure that in 1 month's time, when all of these truths have been contemplated by us,
when we have thought more deeply, they will become much more significant. We will need to refresh. You know, the nature of Kali Yuga minds is that it comes in one ear and goes out the other. You know, we have short memories. It's in the atmosphere. Manda sumanda matayo manda bhaga uparudita. That we are short-lived, unlucky, misfortunate, short memory, and above all, always disturbed. It's the nature of the age. It's in the atmosphere itself. We can't escape it. We can escape it internally when we take shelter of that internal swarup in relationship to Sri Radha and Krishna. When we take deep shelter of our devotional service, when we take deep shelter of Bhakti Devi, then we can escape it forever. So to contemplate this Siksastakam is very powerful. It's wonderful. Now, Gurudev is going to describe. In the first 5 shlokas, instruction has been given on Sambandha Gyan. So this takes us up to Ayi Nanda Tanuja Kinkaram. This is the first 5. And that will bring us to our Swarup. It will bring us to a place of Asakti, which is the basis, Gurudev describes now, of Abhideya. So this understanding Sambandha, my identity, is the basis for my progress. When I understand who I am, then I can make progress. Then I'm understanding what is the Abhideya. The Abhideya is the process. Just like in the Bhagavatam, the first 9 cantos are Sambandha Gyan. The 10th canto is the Prayojana. And the 11th canto is the Abhideya. First, Shukadev Goswami, Vyasadeva, they show us the Prayojana. First they show us that. And then the 11th is the entry into that. But unless you know that first, why would you have any desire or greed to enter into it? The chemistry of entering it is greed. That's the chemistry. Krishna bhakti rasa bhavitamati kriyatam yatita labhyate. Tatra lolyam api mulyam ekalam. Janma koti sukritiyana labhyate. All these verses that I've been quoting, they're all from Srila Rupa Goswami. They're all about how to proceed in our sadhana bhakti, bhav bhakti, to arrive at prema bhakti. He's written verses describing all of these stages. It's really helpful to at least be familiar where they are. And it's very good for the memory. Like the memory is like a muscle. If you practice some gymnastics, you get extra muscles. If you practice the muscle of the brain, trying to learn these verses, you'll strengthen that part of ourselves, that memory, so that we can learn these. But you have to practice. It requires practice. Like anything, it requires practice.
It's not clear that the first 5 shlokas, is it Sambandha or Abhideya?
Sambandha. How could it be Abhideya?
Because it says here, instructions on Sambandha Gyan have been given through
They
the
lead to the Abhideya. Without these instructions on Sambandha, how can we begin to perform the Abhideya? You understand? Indumukhi, you understand this? Yeah. Without the relationship, how can there be any process? How can I be active in my efforts to become more attracted to Krishna? This is the Abhideya. The Abhideya is that method of what I'm actually doing to become attracted to Krishna. It's the path. Like in the Bhagavatam, for example, I described the principal teaching in the 11th canto is one of detachment. This detachment from the material energy is the impetus for taking shelter of the Prayojana Tattva. The principal interest is its attraction. But the method, the Abhideya, is detachment. Abhideya has been described. In the final 3 shlokas, this is 6, 7, and 8, the final 3 shlokas from Nayanam Gladashru Darya, when tears are flooding, these 3 shlokas, they are instructions regarding Prayojana. So what I wanted to do today with that white board was put all the verses down and group them in these brackets, so I'll do that afterwards. But you can also do that. You can make a diagram of this according to these groupings. So the last 3 are instructions on Prayojana.
The first 5?
First 5 are Sambandha Gyan, but the 5th verse is Abhideya in itself, because it's showing the Swarup. So it's both. The 5th verse is both the end of Sambandha and it's the beginning of Abhideya. And then the last 3 are Prayojana. But actually Gurudev is saying that all of these verses in fact are Abhideya. They are all the method for attaining the goal. He says that later on. The ultimate goal are found. In the first 5 shlokas, the process of sudden bhakti is described. Now we have a different grouping. The first 5 shlokas are sudden bhakti. And they are under the heading of Abhideya Tattva, because the sudden is our process. It's our method. We need to be very familiar with these terminologies, Sambandha, Abhideya and Prayojana, to understand what Gurudev is saying. And in the next 2 shlokas, Bhav Bhakti. So the first 5 shlokas, the process is sudden bhakti. And this is also called Abhideya. And in the next 2 shlokas, only 2, is Bhav Bhakti. From the 6th to the 8th shloka, and particularly the 7th and 8th shlokas, deal with the sadhya, or the perfectional stage of bhakti, which culminates in prema. So he's giving these groupings to help us go carefully, step by step. And Gurudev ends his commentary with this beautiful verse, Aradeyo Bhagavan Vijesha, Tanayas Tat Dhamma Vrindavanam, Ramya Kachit Upasana Vraja, Vardu Vargenava Kalpite, Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanam, Amalam Prema Punatonata, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Mata Idam Tat Daro Naparaha. This very beautiful verse describing the entire philosophy in one verse, that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his Dham is the most worshipful place. And those who perform the highest worship are the Brajabadus, the wives of the Gopas in Vrindavan. And the evidence for this is from Srimad Bhagavatam. And this is the opinion of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So this is all capsulated in this final verse. So this verse, Gurudev concludes his commentary, which is very significant. That he's, in other words, saying that the entire essence of all that is valuable is contained in this verse. In other words, the entire essence of all that is valuable is similarly contained within the Siksastakam. Both. Okay, so that's the end of that study there. Now, we want to read some sweet verses from the Rahasya. What is the secret? There are so many verses here. How can we begin to pick out anything? But I'll just start a little bit in the beginning and then I'll jump briefly. So, Gurudev is describing this 8th verse, and he's quoting from Chaitanya Charitamrita, where practically the same verse is given in many Bengali verses. So here it's saying, Srimati Radhika said, Saki, I am a maidservant of the lotus feet of Rasik Shekhar Shri Krishna, who is an ocean of happiness. He may make me joyful by tightly embracing me, or he may trample me beneath his feet. He may make me happy by mercifully giving me his darshan, or he may break my heart by not appearing before me. This is the final essence of praying. This is the final essence that Mahaprabhu is revealing through this Siksastakam. It's the height of our journey, so to speak. He may not understand my inner desires. Nonetheless, he is my Prananath, the Lord of my life. Saki, I have decided that he may love me and display my fortune by abandoning other beautiful ladies in order that he may be controlled by me. He may make them unhappy by sporting with me in front of them, or he may be deceitful, arrogant, duplicitous, and debauched, and just to provoke me, he may torment me by sporting before me with other ladies. Still, he, and only he, is my Prananath. I am not slightly concerned for my own suffering. I only desire his happiness always. The goal of my life is to make him happy in every way. If he feels happiness by giving me distress, that distress is my greatest happiness. So it's been described, when one can understand this, how can we ever be personally in a lamenting mood ourselves if Krishna has arranged so many different results of our various karmas? We are here actually in service to Krishna. Krishna arranged for the jiva to be in this material world because he wanted to demonstrate his compassion. How could he demonstrate his compassion in the spiritual worlds? Everyone's fully satisfied. But it's only here that he can demonstrate his compassion. So in any stage, we are actually invoking the Lord's compassion. So this is pleasing to the Lord in one sense. But the Lord is just waiting for that day when the jiva will again purify his indifference to Krishna. We are here because of indifference. We made the choice, vimukh, we turned away from Krishna. So when we become again attentive to Krishna, then Krishna becomes so joyful, he becomes so pleased, and he's so ready to reciprocate with us in every way. But we shouldn't expect necessarily that Krishna is going to immediately acknowledge us, just like we described those different pastimes with Gurudev, how he would ignore us in different conditions, and then again he would accept us like this. So perhaps Krishna is going to ignore us for a while. Perhaps he's going to hold on to his mercy and not give it. Perhaps Gurudev is going to hold on to his mercy and not give it. He wants to do an operation. He wants us to go deeper and deeper. If Gurudev was ignoring you, how deeply you would go. I remember so many different people would say, Gurudev, he hasn't looked at me for days and days and weeks, They were becoming tortured, and so much more enthusiastic to get Gurudev's mercy. How can I get his mercy? He hasn't looked at me for days. What do I have to do? How else can Gurudev teach us? How can he teach us this? What is the method for teaching us? He's teaching us this. It's saying here, in the second text, that when a person abandons all fruitive activities and fully surrenders himself to me, he becomes a recipient of special prema. This is a result of my merciful treatment towards him. I release him from old age and grant him entrance into my eternal pastimes, where he serves me eternally. What is the nature of those eternal pastimes? The nature of those eternal pastimes is that I'm serving Krishna eternally. That's the nature. So how can we serve unless it's in a fully selfless mentality? We've just described the nature of the female quality of humility and service. This is the essence of our Swarup. Gurudev is explaining here. Having explained Sambandha Tattva, the jiva's relationship with Bhagavan, Abhideya Tattva, the process to attain the supreme goal, and Prayojana Tattva, the supreme goal itself, to his dear devotee Uddhav, here Bhagavan Sri Krishna describes the situation of a pure devotee who is exclusively surrendered to him. As the mortal jiva wanders throughout this material existence, he attains the association of Sri Krishna's eternal associates according to the extent of his sukriti. We discussed this morning. According to the limits of our sukriti, that much mercy we can attain from Sri Guru. It's relationship, it's reciprocal. According to the amount of sukriti I have accrued in many, many births, It has brought me to this place right now. This is the result. And it has brought me to the lotus feet of Sadguru. That is the result of all our Sukriti. But still we are carrying different impressions. And according to those impressions, Gurudev can absorb us more deeply or not so deeply. According to those previous impressions. We want Sukriti. We are hungry for these bhakti credits, bhakti points, you can say. How can I increase my Sukriti? You will increase your Sukriti by carefully following the Ekadasi Brat, for example, by carefully doing Vrindavan Parikrama, by meditating on all the personalities within Vrindavan and very carefully honoring them by doing that Parikrama. You can increase your Sukriti by constantly meditating on Jamuna Devi. Gurudev said there are always 3 pure devotees residing in Vrindavan Dham. Always, always, always. There is Vrinda Devi, Giriraj Govardhan and Yamuna Devi. If we are regularly taking shelter of these personalities, regularly, then our Sukriti is increasing. And with that increased Sukriti, it will be enough to tip the balance into spiritual meditation, spiritual contemplation, bhajana, putting this on the front burner of my activities in the day. According to the Zenabhiskriti, due to his association with pure devotees, the devotee relinquishes the desire for nitya karma and naimitika karma. These are daily and occasional prescribed duties. Our various duties that we are feeling we have to perform, we become released from those, and we're only concerned with pleasing the Lord. Whatever material situation or priestly situation, these become secondary to my bhakti, to my rendering service which I'm hoping will please Krishna. Remember, in the stage of Bhav we discussed 3 different degrees. One is called Bhagavat Prapti Abhilas. This is when I have great hunger to achieve, to attain Krishna. And then there is Anukul Abhilas. This is the highest stage when I just want to please Krishna. And then there is Sohard Abhilas. This is when I want to befriend Krishna. This is even higher, even sweeter. So 3 stages of consciousness. One to attain Krishna, then one to do an activity that is favorable for Krishna, Anukul Abhilas. And then to Sohard Abhilas, to make friends with Krishna. This is even higher. So these are stages manifesting in the stage of Bhav. So by relinquishing this desire for these nitya and naimitika karma, sense enjoyment and liberation, he cultivates pure bhakti. The darkness of his ignorance is removed by the light of bhakti, just as darkness is removed by the light of the sun. The devotee then serves Bhagavan with a full sense of possessiveness, mamata, towards him. He is mine. This mood must rise in the heart. This is the highest conception, that Krishna is mine. Like the cowherd boys were considering that Krishna was theirs. He was their property. Many of the gopis were considering the same. Chandravali was thinking something different. She was thinking, I am yours, Krishna. It's a different mood. That's called dakshina, or tadatmik bhav, that I am yours. But this mood of mamata, this is the mood that Gurudev is saying here. We want to cultivate towards Krishna and Radha. And Bhagavan bestows upon that devotee a spiritual body appropriate for rendering eternal service to him. He will give us that body. We have the seed of that body. That seed is there, that bij is there. But the bhakti lata is given by Guru. The bhakti lata is how that creeper of our nature for devotion will build. It needs to climb on something. It needs a pillar. What is the pillar that the bhakti lata winds itself around? What is the pillar that we have to cultivate? The pillar is humility. That is the pillar. That's the essence. Because as humility increases, and I'm thinking I have nothing, then naturally, simultaneously, my greed increases. So that humility and greed are synonymous. And humility and prema are synonymous. They're the same. This is the pillar that this bhakti lata will twine itself around. That means he bestows a body, qualities, activities, service, and so on, according to the particular mood of the sadhak. As a result of associating with Svajatiya Snigdashraya Bhaktas, Svajatiya Snigda Ashraya. Svajatiya means those in the same jat, or the same group. Sva means own. Sva jat. Jat means group. Svajatiya, my group. That group that wants to serve Sri Guru and Sri Radha in the same mood, the same way. It's very, very individual. It's very individual. Srila Bhakti Rakshakshita Maharaj has said, you may find in life 3 or 4 associates that are like this, that are very, very similar in mood. And that's sufficient for bhajan to flourish. You don't need to have an entire sangha for your bhajan to flourish. The benefits of an entire sangha is we have greater resources to reach out this jewel of bhakti to the rest of the world. That's the principal benefit of having a large sangha, is that we can use our various resources more profitably. We can collectively make a bigger push in the material energy. But for our own bhajan, we don't need a big sangha. You may need 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 that are of a very similar mood and nature. So svajatiya, then snigda, those individuals snigda, they should be affectionate to us. This mood of affection must be there. In other words, we're not playing around with the false ego in my association with these particular individuals. We're off the false ego platform. We're not trying to impress each other with anything, or that's purified. So svajatiya, snigda, ashraya. Always feeling that other person is more advanced than me. This is necessary, to always feel that the other has more devotion than me. We just described yesterday or the day before about in Venugit, how the gopis in their Divyanmad mood were thinking that even inanimate objects had more devotion for Krishna than they had. They thought the clouds had more devotion for Krishna than they had. They thought the animals had more devotion for Krishna than they had. So what to speak of someone who's chanting Hare Krishna, who we already have respect for, but to see them as ashraya, or more advanced. This respect is a very powerful quality. There was once an ashram which was going to pieces. It was falling apart totally. And one great sage came to that ashram, and there was only 5 practicing brahmacharis left. And all the gardens had been run down, the people had left, and so on and so on. And the place was really just falling apart. And he came into that group of brahmacharis, and he sat with them, and then he looked at them all, and he said, actually, you know, one of you is the future acharya. One of you is so empowered. Actually, I can see by Radharani's special gifts. So all those sadhaks, they started looking at each other thinking, well, it must be him, it's certainly not me. Because they were all thinking, you know, it can't be me, because they know themselves. But they were thinking it must be one of the others. So by thinking that it would have been one of the others, their respect for each other built and built. And within a very, very short space of time, 18 months, 2 years, that whole ashram was just flourishing again, because they were showing and honoring each other such respect and regard. So this is the nature of that quality of respect for each other that must be there. So as a result of associating with Svajatiya Snigda Ashraya Bhaktas, affectionate devotees who are of the same mood as himself and more advanced, the sadhaks who are endowed with Madhurya Rati attain a desire in the heart to render service in the amorous mellow. And by practicing bhakti, and by the mercy of devotees, he attains the state of perfection, siddha avashta. Such a devotee performs his sadhana internally under the guidance of Lalita and other Sakhis, and by their mercy he receives bodily features equal to those of the Nitya Siddha Manjaris, and also obtains the pleasure of directly rendering Kunj Seva in Sri Braj Dham. After this attainment of Swarup Siddhi, the Jiva achieves Vastu Siddhi, and for eternity serves Sri Radha in the eternal land of Vrindavan. Such service is only attained by sadhaks in Madhurya Rati. It is not attained by others. So Gurudev is saying, right at the very beginning of this explanation on this verse, and all of the rest of the verses are so sweet. I would advise you to spend time reading these. They are so filled. Here's just one, for example. Text 13. That it's describing, for an understanding of Vipralamba Ras, one should read Gopi Geet in the 10th canto. And in Gopi Geet, we described yesterday this Jayati te dikam jamana braja shrayata indira shashvadatrahi daita drishyatam dikshutavakas draiti deshavas tvam vichinvate. Now he's describing Tavagatam ritam tapta jivanam Kavividitam karma sapam Shravana mangalam Srimadatam Bhuvigranatriye Bhuridajana. The meaning of this is given here. O Krishna, nectar-filled narrations about you are the life and soul of persons suffering in separation from you, and they are sung by great realized poets who are your devotees. So the gopis are singing this in their height of Vipralamba mood. They've been searching in the forest for Krishna. They've been asking the trees, the bushes, even the animals, where is Krishna? Where is Krishna? And then they've realized that the deeper they go into the forest, they're so sure that Krishna has accompanied them in some way, that Krishna secretly will be there. So actually this will be a disturbance for Krishna, to drag Krishna so deeply into the forest. So they come out of the forest, and then they discover Sri Radha. And then with Sri Radha, and seeing the height of her separation, then they think, right, we want to go and sing this beautiful song. We'll go to the sands of the Jamuna. So on the sands, on the banks of Jamuna, where there's no obstruction, there's no trees, there's no hillocks, there's nothing to obstruct the sound of their song. This is the environment, this is the atmosphere that they're singing this song. They know for sure that Krishna is going to hear this song. So in this verse, this is the 9th verse of the Gopi Geet. There are 18 verses in Gopi Geet. And this is the middle of the Gopi Geet. So it's saying these nectar-filled narrations are the life and soul of your devotees. And just by hearing the all-auspicious narrations about you, all kinds of sins, such as parabdha and aparabdha, are removed. This is gross and subtle sins. Sins that are meant to fructify in the future. Even these are being purified by hearing the nectarine, sweet pastimes of Radha and Krishna. Are removed, and all prosperity in the form of prema bhakti arises in the heart. Therefore, no one is equal to or more generous than he who chants and propagates narrations about you. This is all of our duty. We're here drinking up the beverage of Sri Vrindavan Dham. We're chanting, we're performing Ekadashi, we're doing so many wonderful activities to increase our sukriti. Now we should take deeply the meaning and purport of this verse and take this wealth, take it into the world, and in your own personal way, in whichever way you can affect people's consciousnesses, distribute it, one way or the other. Somehow or other, befriend those people who don't know about Radha and Krishna. Somehow or other, give them some prasadam. Talk to them nicely. Something. Somehow, all of us have an ability to distribute this wealth. And it's saying very clearly here, the gopis themselves are saying, no one is more fortunate than that person who is doing this. No one is more generous than he who chants and propagates narrations about you. Now, this is very beautiful. We have time for this. Gurudev is giving a vritti, a commentary on this. He's saying, at the time of Rathayatra, Gaurasundara, endowed with a mood of Sri Radha, became tired and laid down to rest beneath a tree, extending his lotus feet. Within his mind, he relished the Brajadevi's various moods. Maharaj Prataparudra came to him, dressed as an insignificant and lowly person, and in a humble mood massaged Mahaprabhu's feet while gently singing this shloka. In the previous verse of Gopi Geet, which begins with the words Madhuraiva Gira, the gopis who were suffering in separation from Krishna pray for the nectar of Sri Krishna's lips to cure their disease. In reply, Krishna says, O gopis, I cannot understand how you can remain alive in such a diseased condition. The gopis reply, Shyamasundara, we are alive only due to this nectar of narrations about you, which do not allow us to die. If you ask, what is this nectar like? We will answer that it can never even bring peace to someone who is afflicted with the intractable disease of suffering the threefold material miseries. In other words, if we're bound up by material consciousness, it's very hard to be affected by these narrations. Some purification has to be there. The nectar of descriptions of you even calms a forest fire of miseries. So even if we're undergoing those threefold miseries, Adhyatmic, Adhidaivik and Adhibautic, these three miseries that everyone is going through, even these miseries can be purified by hearing these sweet pastimes of Radha and Krishna. Then Krishna may say, O gopis, I will bring you nectar from heaven. You can take that. The gopis answer, Dear Shyamasundara, nectar from heaven will make my body healthy. It will increase lust and so forth, which cause such misfortune. Indra and the other demigods of Swaga have so much lust, anger, greed, illusion, pride and envy. So Bhagavatam is filled with their pastimes from the heavenly planets, just like Indra attacked Krishna in Govardhan. He attacked Brajabhumi itself. If Krishna says, O gopis, take the nectar of liberation, then the gopis will reply, even if you offer liberation, your devotees will not accept it because it is unfavorable for prema bhakti. Where are the loving exchanges in liberation? Dhruva, Prahlad, Brahma, Narad, the Chatushtan, Vyas, Sukha, and other great devotees and poets glorify Harikatha descriptions of you. For those who aspire for liberation, this katha is the immediate effective medicine to cure the disease of material existence. And for materialists, it gives pleasure to the ears and mind. Great personalities who are liberated within this world praise such narrations as nectar. Hearing them removes all the living entities' sins and offenses and bestows auspiciousness. Just as with the arrival of the autumn season, the water in rivers and ponds automatically becomes clean. Similarly, by hearing descriptions of you, the dirt of the living entity's heart is removed. Such narrations give new life to the devotees who are burning in separation from you. And it bestows all kinds of beauty and wealth. One who distributes Krishna Katha throughout the world is a truly benevolent person. Shatadam Shrinvatam Swakata Krishnam. So many verses are saying the same thing in Bhagavatam. So, endless beautiful verses here. And then finally it's saying that as Krishna is wandering through the forest, the gopis are thinking, Tate sujatam charanam muruham staneshu Vita priyayda dimahi karkesheshu Tena tavimatyadhyata tena kim swit kurpadi vi brahmati dir balavayu samna. That they're singing, this is the 19th verse of the Gopi Gita, and they're singing that we are thinking that your feet are being pained by the sharp stones as you walk along in the forest paths. We want you to put those feet on our soft breasts and relieve the pain there. The gopis are so much empathizing with the Lord. This verse is in here. This verse. Use your search to tell me which.
Text 16.
Text
16.
Text 16, yes. Yatte sujata charanam guruham staneshu. This, O beloved, your beautiful feet are even softer than a lotus. When we massage those soft, tender lotus feet, we fearfully, slowly, and gently place them on our breasts in such a way that our hard breasts may cause them no pain. With those same soft feet, you wander behind the cows in the deep forest. Will your lotus feet not be pierced by sharp stones and the like? Such thoughts make us extremely anxious. O Prananath, you are our life, so please stop wandering in the forest. Please appear before us. These sentiments arising from the gopis' hearts will carry us into another realm of consciousness. They'll take us into that spiritual world. For sure, being guided by Srila Gurudev. Actually, the gopis have nothing to fear. Bhumi Devi, it's described, herself puts her tongue out. And wherever Krishna's walking, he's walking on the tongue of Mother Earth. She has her tongue extended. So Krishna doesn't feel the pinch of anything. It's the soft, beautiful, how your texture of your tongue feels. How does Mother Earth's tongue feel? That's what Krishna's actually walking on. But the gopis, in their distracted minds and their moods of deep affection for Krishna, are considering even these points about Krishna's discomfort. Maybe it's harsh for him walking through the forest of Vrindavan. So this is an exhibition of their love. And these exhibitions have been brought out by Krishna leaving the company of the gopis. Krishna left them and they sang this song. And now this has been glorified throughout the world to show the glory of the gopis' love for Krishna, to show the glory of Radha's love for Krishna. This is who ultimately Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is. He's showing the glories of Sri Radha's love. He's showing all these glories in this Siksastakam, these verses. It's all the glory of Radha's love. That is what this Siksastakam is about. So now it's time to stop. But please read this last 8th chapter. It's filled with so much sweetness. I was suggesting to one devotee today that in order to maintain our consciousness, you should make a plan, perhaps to meet together once in a day or once every couple of days and read directly from these verses in bhajana rahasya in relationship to the understandings that we have now of the stages of bhakti, in relationship to our sadhana bhakti, focused on our bhav bhakti, and what is prema bhakti. You can sit together, because how else will you live without hearing? I know many other personalities will come and be giving beautiful classes also, but there may come a time when there aren't being given any direct classes. So if you build your intimate association here in Gopinath Bhavan of how to continue drinking these pastimes, satam prasangam mamavira sampido bhavanti hritkana rasanaya gata, that these nectarine instructions are so life-giving, they're the life-giving force for the devotee. They will take us from shraddha to rati to bhakti. This is what is being explained in the Bhagavatam.
I want to ask you a question about the 8 verses related to the verses.
Okay. Go on.
It seems that Mahaprabhu sometimes is in the mood of a devotee and sometimes in the mood of Radha. So it seems that the first 5 verses is
Sadhan Bhakti.
up to
Sadhan Bhakti, because he is our bhajan shiksha guru. He's showing us how to perform the sadhan. And then once we have performed the sadhan, then we come into the higher stages of bhav. And then once that stage of bhav reaches its limit, we drop into that stage of bhav, of prema.
Yeah, but what I mean is up to verse 6, he's like a devotee. Acting like a devotee. He
Yes.
cannot be like Radha at that moment.
Yes.
right?
Well, no,
And
in verse
so-
5 he's like Radha. Ai Nanda Tanuja Kinkaram. It's his swarup. What is Mahaprabhu's swarup? His swarup is Radha. That is his swarup. He is Radha. It's feminine. Ai Nanda. I've
I
explained.
am your eternal servant. Yeah?
Ai, it's the feminine.
Okay.
And he's saying to Krishna that he is Krishna's eternal servant.
Okay. And the next one, Nayanam Parashudaya. Srimati Radharani cannot think like that. When will my eyes filled with tears? She already is like that.
That's right. So what do you say?
So that one is...
So this is again Mahaprabhu showing the sadhak.
The
This is
sadhak.
for the mercy of the sadhak.
Right. And 7
this
and
is-
8 are fully like Radharani.
These are anubhavs. Radharani already has this mood, as you say. She already is exhibiting these bhavs. So the jati rati sadhak and the ajati, that who has not attained, and there's the jata rati sadhak, that sadhak who has attained. So there are 2 commentaries, you can say, on this whole Siksastakam. One is coming from the perspective of the ajati rati sadhak, and one is coming from the perspective of the jata rati sadhak. So those are described in that diagram very clearly. So we should be familiar with both, knowing that we are ajata rati sadhaks, or thinking in our humility like that, but seeing how do the jata rati sadhaks manifest these moods and stages.
So mostly is this, right? 7 and 8 are mostly Radha.
Yes.
The one you said.
He is
said-
feeling himself fully in Radha Bhava, and we are experiencing that as maidservants of Sri Radha. Mahaprabhu is giving us that.
And the other question is related to that. One sentence that you said yesterday. You said the goal of the sadhaka is to serve Sri Radha in these moods. So that's very nice. I was thinking, does that also apply to Mahaprabhu? The goal of the sadhaka to serve Mahaprabhu in these moods also? Both, right?
Our service to Mahaprabhu is in appreciation of his distribution of the path of devotion. We understand who is Mahaprabhu. Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikritya Kladini Shakti Asmat Ekatmana. Mahaprabhu is Radha and Krishna, they become one. So it's not like Mahaprabhu is any separate to Radha and Krishna. Mahaprabhu is Radha and Krishna. So when we understand fully the identity of Mahaprabhu, as I've encouraged you from the very beginning of these classes, to understand the identity of Mahaprabhu by knowing the reasons for his descent and his 3 desires, knowing that it's non-different totally to Krishna. Mahaprabhu is Krishna with the mood of Sri Radha, but actually they are one. Gurudev describes they're like 2 lotuses in one stem.
It applies to both.
Yes.
To aspire to serve them.
Aspire to serve Sri Radha,
Sri Radha.
who will please Sri Krishna. By serving Sri Radha, then my love for Krishna is because Sri Radha loves Krishna so much. Krishna is Radha's prananath. So because Krishna is in relationship to Radha like that, that is why I love Krishna. It's conditioned by my service to Radha. It's not exclusive. I'm not looking just to Krishna. I'm looking exclusively to Sri Radha. She is the ashraya. Who is Mahaprabhu? Do you understand? A little bit.
But I also feel inclined
To Krishna.
to serve, Mahaprabhu in the moods of Siksastakam that he's going through.
Yes, very
These are
beautiful.
very nice.
Very beautiful. You should. And as those moods deepen and evolve, the personality of Mahaprabhu will become more apparent to us. That it is Krishna who wants to taste Radha. And he is tasting Radha, and he does become Radha. Completely. Nevertheless, Gadadhar is there. Nevertheless, Srimati is actually there in form. So there's a whole beautiful dynamic which I want to discuss in great detail. I'm coming back on the 13th of February, if anyone is going to be here, from the 13th of February till the 23rd of February. For 10 days, I have a space, and I want to discuss more deeply Gaura Tattva in preparation for us going to Navadvip.